welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to do a presentation, an introduction on this perspective, which is being called the universal perspective of the unfolding of time. Or an extension of it is the Global Convergent Logic. I've already been more than a year presenting different videos, and you can already find information about it on the blog, which I've opened in the Facebook page. And I decided to do this video to do an update on a basic presentation. So anyone who maybe could resonate or is going to find this video, or you would like to share this information with someone who you think could be interested in it, this would be the introduction video. This would be the first video to explain the logical basis on which we are trying to look into or open this perspective. I already made an introduction, but I think the time has come to do a new introduction, a new presentation. And the idea is because it's necessary to update it, okay? So let's begin by looking into the name. Universal perspective, unfolding of time, of the unfolding of time. So the first part is universal. And when we talk about something which is universal, we are trying to look at something which includes all the different perspectives, all the different points of view, all the angles of the sphere. And that's going to already give you a first idea of from which points of view are we looking at this information. So if you kind of resonate, the idea is not so much to look into give a solution to your personal and particular problems. So there's a difference between opening up to a universal perspective than to a personal and particular perspective. And people who are still kind of focused in their lives in trying to give solutions to their own personal problems, and that's where the focus is, it's not going to be such a good idea, or it's not going to be so convenient to open to this universal perspective. This is more focused on people who want to become available to, let's say, to become available parts of the universe. That is a self-referential, an internal decision. Something within you is going to have the feeling that no longer do I want to have a relationship of life only based on my own self, my own personal self. But there's something that is moving me inside to begin to have a relationship where I consider myself a part of the universe, but I want to become available to, let's say, the purpose of the universe. You see, that is quite that is an important difference to discern. Okay, where is your interest? Is the interest more on your own self, or is the interest on allowing the universe to use yourself? Yeah. Do you want to use the universe, or do you want to become available to the universe? And that's already going to give you an orientation if this is kind of for you to continue looking into the information and to look into the further videos or not. Perspective is, what is a perspective? It's a way of having a relationship with something. It's like a point of view. From which perspective do I want to have a relationship with my life, with reality? Yeah? And there is a great difference between just looking at things from a personal perspective, what is in my interest and what is in my benefit, and having that relationship with reality, than from a universal perspective, okay? So this is another important thing. What are we trying to open up here? A new perspective. What is this going to give you, okay? What is this going to allow you to have? A new perspective on reality, but based on a universal perspective. Universal, as I said, is that perspective which includes all the perspectives. It's like a particular perspective is an angle in the sphere. And the universal perspective is the sphere which contains all the personal perspectives, yeah? So, looking into the further words, unfolding. So what do we mean by unfolding, okay? And the word unfolding is from a unity, from something which is not divided, create a division. A division into two or more parts. So something which is a totality, begin to break it up into two or more parts. Why is this interesting? Because really, when we look at, or if we take the universe as one totality, why do we see that there's different parts within that universe? Why is there different individualities within that whole totality? Because there's a phenomena occurring which is called the unfolding or the unfoldment. And that allows what? That allows us to have a view of things from the totality and from a particular point of view. And that is going to allow us to understand, let's say, the forest and the trees of the forest. So when do we become totally conscious of a forest, let's say? When we can see it from its totality and when we can see it from its parts. And when we see it from the parts and its totality, we become completely conscious of that. That's why we could say that is the main purpose of unfolding a unity. Let's take. I like because this is going to be based on an abstraction which contains an abstraction of the logic of the universe, which we can see it within all the things in the universe, like fractals. So in anything we see in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, is going to contain the logic of the unfoldment. Okay? And a good example to see this could be to take a seed. Okay? A seed of a tree, a lemon tree, let's say. And what does the seed have? A seed is a totality. And that seed is a totality which has all the information, all the purpose of the tree contained in that seed. We can say that in a way the tree is already contained within that seed. But what happens with that seed? It is a totality, okay? It's a totality. But to be able to understand what is in that seed, we have to unfold it. We have to be able to open it up into two or more parts. And this is like, let's say it is a dynamic of physics of the universe. It is to take the whole universe and to be like a seed, and to begin to open it up to understand what it's inside it. Yeah. So the seed, when it becomes activated, the seed, what begins to happen? It begins to divide itself into different parts. So it begins to divide itself into different, that universal perspective of the seed begins to divide itself into particular perspectives, but which all are related to the same unity, okay? So the seed begins to unfold into different parts: the roots, the log, the branches, the leaves, and so on. It begins, let's say, a development in time. That means when the seed is, everything is in the seed in one instant. Everything is contained in that seed. But to able to, when we unfold it, we need to give birth to time, because unfold it is to see it separate in a sequence. But first we have to start with the seed, the non-linear, the instant of unity, and then unfold it, okay? And then what happens is the tree begins to grow in time, begins to develop itself. And that begins to create a process. And that process is going towards a purpose. And at the end, what do they say is like the main aim or the main purpose of a tree, the ultimate goal of a tree. The ultimate goal of a tree is to give a fruit. All right? But what we have to understand here is that fruit, that purpose was already contained in the beginning. That is the difference between, we can say, a linear understanding of time and a non-linear understanding of time. Non-linear is the seed where all the parts that is going to develop of the tree is contained within the same instant, okay? But then we open time, and it begins a process from the roots to the log, etc. And it ends up with the fruit. Now, the interesting thing, if we look at this analogy, and when we have that fruit, which is the future, okay, the purpose of the future, what do we see that's inside the fruit? What's inside that fruit? So the end is to give a fruit. And what's inside? We have, inside the fruit, we have the seed. That means that the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, is the same thing. We start with a seed and we end up with a seed. Because time is not just like a linear process, okay? But what is the difference from starting with a seed, only just having the seed, where we have all the potentials and all the purpose contained in that seed, and what is the difference of after having the development and going through all the growth of the tree until reaching the point of having the fruit, is that seed, let's say, becomes conscious of itself. That's what the unfoldment of time does. It allows the universe, okay, the universal observer, to become conscious of itself. And that is just one analogy which contains, let's say, it contains this logic with how the universe is working. But the interesting thing is that you, as a human, are also part of that process. We could say that the same way a seed of a tree works and functions, we could say that the origin of the universe is like the universal seed. The universal seed where all its potentials and all its purposes is contained in that seed. And we are an individual part, an individual aspect of that process of the universe going from a seed to going through the division of the seed in order to become conscious of the universe, to become conscious of itself. And the human experience is very interesting because it has this possibility of being individual, but becoming conscious of the connection with the universe. So this is the phenomena which we are beginning to experience in this moment, and which the invitation of this information is going towards, is that within your individuality, you are going to begin to become conscious of your universality, of how you are not just an isolated element of the universe, but how you are an element which is interconnected with all the elements of the universe. And this is what we can say a change in perspective. Because normally, when we see the different divisions of elements, okay, we could say the animals, the trees, the humans, what is the particular aspect of their relationship with reality? The relationship is, I am an individual and I'm kind of separate from the world. I have to protect my identity. I have to protect myself. Why? Because they are disconnected from a universal perspective, to become conscious of a universal perspective. But now this is the invitation. It is to become you as recognizing yourself as an individuality, an individual receptor, but becoming available to begin to connect consciously with the universal perspective. And this is something that humanity as a whole has not really experienced. Humanity has experienced itself as separate parts, as particular perspectives. And it could be, well, my own self, my own individuality, me, David, or my family, or my tribe, or my country. And what is that? Is always relating my identity with something which is limited. And that means if it's limited, I am going to have to look for what is beneficial for my group against another group. Because if I'm limited, that means there must be a me and something else. That is the beginning of a conflict. If my perspective is me and others, that is like the ground on which a conflict is born. But I would like to open another view on what a conflict is, because a conflict could be seen in two possible ways. A conflict as something which is a problem which I have to solve, I have to eliminate. So the conflict is a problem, and let's say the conflict is, I am North America, I have an identity of a North American, and there's another part of the earth which is called Russia. And me as an American, I want to defend my own tribe. And the Russians are the threat. So, what would be the solution of the conflicts to defeat the Russians? For me as American to be the winner, and to defeat the Russians to become a loser. So someone has to win and someone has to lose. That is one way of giving a solution to a conflict. But another way is to seeing that the conflict is not about who wins and who loses. The conflict is showing me where I am limited in my perspective, where my identity is still fragmented. And when I am able to see that the conflict is telling me where my perspective is limited, I can see where I need to expand my perspective. So in that case, I have to break down my reference as being an American or just an American. So we can say that I am an American, yes, okay. But that American is contained with a different. It's contained within another inclusion group. It's not only I'm American. I'm also a part of the earth. I'm part of this earth. And a Russian is also part of this earth. So you see, the conflict is because I think I am separate from the Russian and we have to fight. But if I just see that, maybe what I have to do is see myself beyond the identity of an American and begin to see that other part with which I have a conflict, as the question would be, instead of who has to win and who has to lose, it is how do we establish a new relationship between the parts. The conflict is showing me where I am limited and where I am not able to see the purpose of the other person. And that is where we have to open up, is that where we have the conflicts, the conflict is not based on someone is the problem. Something external is the problem. That is not where the structure of the conflict is. The conflict is where I am limited in my perspective and I'm not able to see myself as connected with another person. And the only perspective which is going to be able to see myself in a functional connection with others is a universal perspective. Okay? So, let's take the next word, which is time. Okay? And why is time going to be important? Because from that unity, or that universal seed, let's call it, when it begins to unfold and divide itself into different parts, as I said, that is the birth of time. Because when you have a separation of parts, you have what we call a process from going from one point to another, from the growth of the first roots to the fruit. That is a process. That is time. Okay. Now, there's something important in the way that we're going to be seeing time here, because time is not only about something in the past happened. I am here in the present, which is happening, and the future is something which is about to happen. That is one perspective of time, which is a linear perspective of time. But also to understand time, and this is a new concept, as a movement of speed. Time is the movement of speed. And let me explain that. That when we go from the past and we begin that process of development and we're moving, what is that movement? It's an increase in the speed of time. So the nature of time is always to increase its speed of frequency. And let's put an example which everyone can understand, okay? If we look at things which happened 200 years ago, let's take transportation, okay? And we look how people 200 years ago used to move around the world, how they used to transport themselves around the world. And they would be using horses, okay? And a horse, to be able to go from, let's say, Spain to France would take days or weeks, maybe even months. And what is the difference now in transportation? It is the same, it's the same distance from Spain to France. It's the same distance, but now the transportation with buses, with cars, with planes, it takes a lot less. So I can do the same thing, the same event, but in less amounts of time. So the increase of the speed of time is that in the same length of time and same unit of time, I can do a lot more things in it. I can do a lot more events. Okay? And this is a nature of the universe. The nature of time is a movement in speed. That's why, like computers, when we see computers, I buy a computer now, and in 3 months it's already out of date. I buy a state-of-the-art computer, and in 3 months it's out of date. Why is that? Because now there's, we can say, a correction and an update, which is a lot faster than before. And this is happening in everything that we're experiencing in life, in the world. And this is probably what people are beginning to perceive as something is changing, okay? And what do we mean that something always has been changing in time. The difference is now is that it's so fast and it's so evident that we are becoming conscious of those changes. Maybe in the days of my grandmother, the changes in time were so slow that maybe someone couldn't perceive the acceleration of time. But now it's unavoidable to see it. It's clear, it's obvious. And this is not something only which is happening at a technological level. This is happening in a political level, it's happening in a social level, and most important for the individual person who's listening to me, this is also happening at a human level. It's happening with your brain, it's happening with your biology, it's happening with your emotional maturity. Everything is going faster and faster and faster and faster. That's why we say that the youth, or like Google is a very good example of that, you know. The websites, the internet. You know, before, to be able to listen what had happened in the news, we had to wait for the newspaper to come or the television program to tell us what has happened. Now, in a click with our telephone, we've got the updates of news all the time. What is that? It's an acceleration in the way that information is being interconnected. So, this is more or less the kind of context, the basis of the context on which this information is pointing towards. It is to have a resonance, an internal resonance, an internal feeling that, first of all, I understand that I am an individual person, okay? But I am not only an individual person. And I'm not only part of a limited identity. I'm not only part of my tribe, my family, I'm not only that. Actually, what I am is a part of the whole totality of the universe. And the universe is becoming conscious of itself through my part. And through the interrelation of all parts. And this is that you consciously, in your own personal aspect, becomes available to the purpose of the universe. No longer the purpose is to tell the universe what to do. It's not so much about this idea of telling the universe to give me abundance, to give me more money, to give me a better wife, to give me children. That is a personal, that is a particular relationship with reality. It's me telling the universe what to do. This is about allowing the universe to inform me of its of the universal purpose through me. And that is a decision. It's a decision of becoming available, of becoming a part which is available to a universal purpose, okay? And the unfoldments, as I said, it's the separation of one unity for that unity to become conscious of itself. And always the question we have to ask, or humanities always ask, or we're always looking for, it's what is the origin of all things? Where is the origin of all things? And there's been many answers, there's been many ways of understanding that. But we don't have to have a philosophical understanding of the origin. We just have to have a logical understanding that I'm already connected with the origin. And that the origin, this is a revolutionary way of seeing it. The origin, remember, is the seed. It's not the beginning of time of the seed, it's the seed. So, the seed has everything within it. So the origin is not in the past. The origin is never in the past. The origin is always in the present. It's always in 0 point. It's always in the same instant. And within that instant, there is an opening of time. And there we have past, present, and future. Okay? And another important thing to see is that with the analogy that I explained, I use the origin as a seed, which is already a concrete, a thing that exists. But where I want to open this is that the origin of all existence has to contain all of existence. It has to include all of existence. So that means the origin of all existence cannot be limited. Anything that exists has a limitation. Anything that exists has a limitation. Even, let's say, Earth has a limitation. The solar system has a limitation. The galaxy has a limitation. So, the question would be, the origin is that which contains all of existence, all the limits of existence, but it doesn't have a limit. It's illimited. And what is the only thing that can be, which does not have a limit? Something which does not exist. Because if it exists, it already has a definition and it already has a limitation. So the origin of all of existence is something which does not exist. The fundamental universal origin is the most inclusive aspect, the most universal aspect, the illimited aspect. What does that mean? That any word that you want to give it is not it. Because a word, if you see in the word, it is trying to define something. That's what a word does. It defines something in existence. So we're going to use a word, in order to make this possible to communicate. But understand that the origin goes beyond any word. We cannot put the illimited inclusive observer contained in a word in existence. Okay? And what would be the closest word that we can use, which is more than to define it, to give us an orientation towards it? What would be a word which, well, one could be illimited, inclusive. We could also say nothingness. Why nothingness? Because the opposite of nothing is something, and something is limited. And the origin of the universal origin cannot be limited. We could also say emptiness. Emptiness. It is something which contains the totality of space and time, but it is beyond space and time, which means that it is not even something which is eternal or infinite. Because if it's infinite, something which is infinite needs space, and something which is eternal needs time. And this is something that goes beyond space and time. It is the origin beyond space and time. But from this origin, this nothingness, this emptiness, this limited observer, whatever you want to call it, which we are going to position here as plane 7, from that aspect which does not exist, there the birth of anything which exists, and if it exists, it means it has space and time. If it exists, it has space and time, because if it exists, it has a limitation, space, and if it exists, it has a development in time. So this observer contains all of space and time, but is not within space and time. It contains everything that exists, but is not. It's not something which is in existence. Okay. So, one of the most important tools from which we are going to communicate this, to be able to give order to the explanation, is this picture here, this diagram here, which we're going to call it a stencil, okay? And this stencil, what it's going to try and give us is kind of like a mental tool in order to be able to communicate this information, and for you to begin to have a mental order at the beginning, a mental order of what we're trying to explain here. So the most important thing, what does unfold? What is unfolding something? It is giving different speeds. It is opening something into different speeds. For example, we can use the example of the rainbow of light. And light, we just see it white, yeah? We don't see all the colors. And when we open light, we refract light, what do we begin to see? Within the white color, we begin to see many colors. We begin to see red and so on and so forth. We see the rainbow, okay? Okay, what is the rainbow? It is an unfoldment of speeds, okay? But this is still an analogy we are using within the existence that we know. But now I want to give an analogy that is not. It's based on an abstraction on which everything that exists can kind of is a fractal of it, like I said before. Okay. So this is a logical instrument. Okay, it's an abstract and logical tool which contains all the different examples. All right. So 7 is going to be, let's say, that origin. Okay, it is the origin which contains all the speeds, but it has to kind of like the white light. It has to open. It has to open itself. That's another good word for unfolding. It's something which opens from within out. That's an unfolding, okay? Within it has everything, so it opens within out. And what is contained, what are the levels of speed or planes of speed which are contained within that origin, that universal seed, which is nothingness, which is emptiness? We're going to have 7 speeds, okay? 7, as I said, is the origin, okay? So let's just write it here. So origin, we're going to have 3 main characters, we could say, in this diagram, yeah? One is the origin. But the origin, remember, is something which does not exist. So how can, and one is existence, okay? existence, something which exists. Reality, okay, something, something which exists. Okay, so how do we go from something which, from the origin which does not exist, to something which does exist? We need a separation, because something which exists has a separation, has a limit. This has no limits, and this has a limit. How does that happen? We need a separation. That's going to be plane 4. Plane 4 is going to, we could call it, give an identity. It's going to give an identity for the origin to exist, to have an experience. And look, that could be another way of defining the origin. The origin is something which does not have an identity. You see? Because an identity is going to give it a limit. So the origin is that which does not have an identity, but which gives birth to all identities. So we have an origin of all things, of all time, of all the universe, which is nothing. And for nothing to become something, it needs a separation. It needs an identity. Okay? So that would be plane 7, plane 4, plane 1. These are like, let's call it the 3 main characters, the 3 main players. All of us, as me, David, first I know that I exist. I have a body, I have a reality. But what makes David different to a monkey? Okay, what makes we both exist? Okay, monkey exists, David exists. What makes us different? What makes us different? Our identity, plane 4, our design. So each of us has an individual existence which has a design. Okay. But where does the design, all the designs come from? From a universal inclusion, totality. It's like saying, let's say, an analogy for you to understand is, I am David. That is the maximum, let's say, individuality I have. David is a human. Okay, or David is Spanish. Okay, so that gives me another, David is contained within the identity Spain, okay? But Spain is contained within the identity Europe, and Europe is contained within the identity Earth. What does that mean? We can never separate the parts from its totality. We can have the perception that there's a separation, but there's rarely, if I don't understand Earth, I can't understand David. So to be able to understand David, I have to go to its maximum origin. And the origin of everything that exists is something which does not exist. Yeah? Okay, so let's continue. What we're seeing here is how you are connected with the universe, okay? What are the speeds or the planes or the aspects with which you are connected, okay? As I said, you exist, and for you to be able to exist, you must have an identity which makes you different to other things which exist, and all that comes from a common origin. Okay, so so how do we go from an origin to an identity? Okay, so nothingness and emptiness, total nothingness, total emptiness is always going to be the most inclusive position. Okay, because there's nothing which limits it. Remember, but what is the first thing that we see, or what's the first speed which can come out of nothingness or emptiness? What we see is that emptiness has pure potentiality, infinite potentiality. But when we're talking about potentials, we're already talking about something which comes out of emptiness, okay? So that means there is a little difference in the speed from nothingness to potentiality. And that's what plane 6 is going to be. Plane 6 is going to be potential. Pure potentiality. All the potentials of all the possibilities of space-time. Of anything, okay? Okay, but this is one thing. Pure potentiality, it's like, let's put an example. Imagine you want to build a building, okay? You want to build a building, which exists. The first condition to be able to build a building is for there to be empty space, nothing. Okay, but then when you see that nothingness has pure potentiality. It can become anything. You can put a casino, you can put a hotel, you can put anything. In that point, that empty space has pure potentiality. Okay, but the potential, let's say, needs an order. It needs an equation. It needs like intelligence. So what gives potentiality an order? A potential an order. It's going to be plane 5. And plane 5, we could call it, there's many ways of calling it. One could be the unconscious or the logic. Okay? So from a potential, we need a logic for that potential to be able to express itself into something. Okay? It's like also, you know, a lot of times people consider the origin of the universe as the intelligence behind everything that exists. Well, the intelligence behind anything that exists, what is intelligence? It has all the equations for something to have an order. That's an intelligence, okay? Well, that's going to be plane 5, not plane 7. Plane 7 is nothing. But we need an intelligence, we need equations, we need a logic to be able to allow that potential to exist. So we can call it logic for now, okay? Now, this is a very important point. What is the logic? With what logic is that potential going to express itself into something? Okay? What logic? And we have two main logics. We have a logic which separates things, and we have a logic which reunites things. A logic which allows us to separate, to see the trees, okay, to be able to see the trees, like a zoom, to be able to see the trees. But then there's also a logic for us to see that those trees are all connected into a wood, a forest. And that is what we're going to call, when we come in this part here on the left, the kind of, you know, coming down from an origin to something that exists, we're going to call it a divergent logic, because it has to separate itself into many things, from a totality into many things. It needs a logic which can separate it, okay? And then we have another logic, which is for that existence to become conscious and return consciously, have a perception, a conscious perception of how that unity connects with a universality. Well, that logic is going to be a convergent logic. A convergent logic, because it's going to unite things, it's going to converge things. And the origin has these two possibilities, okay? These two logics of expressing a potential. A potential which can be expressed to have a separation, or a potential which can be expressed to have a reunification, an integration. So you see, from nothingness we have pure potentiality, but potentiality needs intelligence, it needs equations, it needs a logic. Okay, but now we've got all that, but now we need a design. A design is what makes something which has no separation into something which does have separation, an identity, okay? And this would be what we call this, from 4 up, 4 would be a kind of, we can say, a connector. As you can see, it can connect with this 8, which would be the number 8. It can connect the top part with the bottom part. And what is it going to be connecting? What 2 aspects is it going to be connecting? It's going to be connecting what we call the unconscious, or what we say the invisible, the abstract, that which we cannot see, and the conscious, which is the visible and that which we can see. And this is another important thing, is that anything which we can see comes from something that we cannot see. Anything which exists comes from something which does not exist. And this is the division that 4 does between something which is a global unconscious to a particular existence. And the identity, in order from the identity to have an expression into existence, into something which exists, it needs 2 main principles. It needs information and energy, okay? And again, this is a fractal, so what we call, it needs, our identity is going to express itself through a mental plane, a thinking process, or a neurological process, and through an emotional process, and that's going to give us an existence. So plane 3, we could call the mental plane. It's what I'm trying to do is show you that they are different speeds, and we cannot just limit it with one word. I'm using words to give you a reference of what this is. But the mind, anything that exists has a plane 3. Anything that exists has a plane 3. So mind is not only the human brain. Mind is a conscious intelligence. 5 is an unconscious intelligence, which is behind everything. And 3 is a conscious intelligence. So cats have plane 3. Anything that exists has plane 3, okay? And 2, so we have information, a mental process, and for that information to exist, we need energy or an emotion, energy and movement. That's why. And the plane 2 would be in the emotional plane, emotion. And seeing in your own experience, the way that you think depends on your identity. So, if you are a monkey, you're going to have a different mental process than a human. And if you are an American, you're going to have a different way of thinking than a Russian. Because depending on your design, on your identity, you're going to have a way of thinking, okay? A way of processing information in your mind. And depending on how you think something, you're going to have a feeling. You're going to have a chemical movement. Yeah? So let's say if you're thinking something which your identity considers good, the emotion you're going to have maybe is happiness, okay? But if your identity, or you think in something which is negative, according to identity, you're going to have maybe a sad emotion. And that is going to begin to create a reality and existence, okay? It's going to affect your body. But the important thing for you to see is that what is positive, let's say, for an Indian and what is positive for an Argentinian depends on their identity. It depends on their value system. Another important thing about this is not a belief system. This is not a value system. Because we are using the following. We're using a logic for us to have a relationship, a different type of relationship with our reality. So, is this telling you what to do? Is this giving you answers? No. It is giving you the structure with which you can find your own answers. So a belief system tells you what to do. A value system tells you what's good and what's bad. What does a logic do? It tells you how you work. How you work. And depending on how you work, you have to find your own answers. So you have to see that you have like a function, you have a role in the universe. The same way that the heart and the liver have different functions in the body, you have a function within the organism of the universe, okay? And where are you going to find the answer? You can only find it within yourself, self-reference. And this is the difference, that we've always been finding answers or looking for answers depending on what other people said according to a belief system. Now, the logic is just describing how you are organized. Everyone has a mental plane. Everyone has an identity. Everyone has an emotion. Everyone has an existence. Everyone has an unconscious. And let's see how it works. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing how the computer works, but I'm not telling you what to do with the computer. I'm just telling you how it works, how it functions. This is how you are connected to all the planes of existence. So this is not about giving you answers, yeah? It's about you being able to have a different relationship with your conflicts, a different relationship with your life, with the universe, with everything. That's what a logic does. Is the logic that makes you have a relationship with things, is it based on division, separation, conflict, self-protection, survival? Or is the logic that you're beginning to relate with reality based on connection, link, purpose, function? You see? And each person, this is the most important thing, is that each person has the answer, its coherent answer and its coherent function within themselves, meaning no one can tell you what to do or what not to do and how to do it. This is not about telling you what to do or how to do it. This is just showing you how you work. And that's a very big difference of relating with yourself from a belief system, relating yourself from a value system, and relating with your reality from a logic. Yeah. So good. So, okay, and another very, very short, is that if you see we can also call this like past, present, and future, okay? The linear time, okay? The linear time, x-axis, we're going to call it. But what we have to see is, where's the origin, 7? And where are we always going to find the origin? Always in the y-axis or the present moment, which is connected, the origin is connected with each plane in what we call the 0 point. See? So, this is also another way of this. What is all this giving us? It's giving you a perspective. It's giving you a logic, which is going to give you a perspective, which is going to give you a way to have a relationship with your present moment. It's not about telling you what's going to happen when you die and giving you a theory. It's not a story. This is not a story. It's not a theory. It's not reincarnation and all that. This is just allowing you to have a logic which gives you a perspective to have a relationship with your present. Because in the present is the only point where you are connected with the origin. So the idea of giving you theories about the future, that's not the idea, okay? You are establishing your own answers with your own reality, which is going to be functional to the whole universe. So what do we need in a human body? We need all the parts of the body to be self-referential. The heart is listening to itself because it has its function. The liver also, the lungs also. And what does that establish? A coherent organism, a healthy body. So first, instead of trying to change things and make him coherent out there, we have to begin to establish an inner coherence, an inner convergence. And once you have that inner convergence, then you begin to see how that inner convergence and that self-reference begins to have a relationship with the world. Okay? So the divergent movement, the convergent movement, and the connection of all the planes, yeah? We also, what's the result of this universal perspective or unfolding of time? Which would be kind of like the result would be a global convergent logic. That's where kind of we pointing towards. It's for the global, the totality of the universe, let's call it, has a convergent logic which links all the elements. And what have we been experiencing up to now? We've been experiencing that Russia is separate to America and they fight against each other. That is a divergent logic. They belong in the same, it's always global, they belong to the same totality, but the relationship is of separation, of conflict. And that gave us an experience. But now there's a new kind of possibility in space-time. And it's instead of the elements having a conflictive relationship between each other, they're going to begin to have a coherent relationship between each other. First, we have to find our inner coherence within ourselves and how that inner coherence begins to dialogue coherently with the world. And that is going to begin to affect the global unconscious, and that's going to make a whole new period of relationships within, at the moment, as what we know in planet Earth, okay? And that's the invitation. The invitation is not for you to believe anything. It's not for you to imitate anything. It's just for you to make a decision. This is just giving you a tool to allow you establish an inner decision, which is for you to become available to the purpose of the origin. And what is the main universal purpose of plane 7, of the origin? As I said, the seed becomes a tree to be able to become conscious of itself. So, 7 unfolds itself into many things to be able to become conscious of what it is. And that is the purpose, to expand the consciousness of the origin. And we are actors, we are parts in that process. So to become available is to become available to the universal purpose, to become receptors which allow the connection of their receptor with that universal emitter. So it's not like I'm doing it for myself. It's I'm becoming available for the universe. For that purpose, to expand consciousness, to expand its consciousness. Because that's something that 7 can't do. It's not conscious of itself. That's what a seed is, not conscious of itself. It needs the whole process of time, of separation, and all that. And to become conscious of itself, we have to know what we are not, somehow, limitation, conflict, to begin to become conscious of what we are, okay? The interrelationship of all elements in a totality, yeah? And that would end up with a global convergent logic. And that is all the elements in the earth having a convergent relationship between each other and creating a global, let's say, healthy earth relationship, yeah. The same way that all the cells in my body are having a convergence relationship between each other and establishing a coherent biology. Well, the same in the macro. Yeah. And well, for those who listened to this and for those who resonated with this, well, there's more videos. We have a radio program also. And you can go on to the other videos, which you can find in the blog. And we'll leave you kind of an indication to go to the blog. And there you can find all the information, which all this, where did all this start? It started, or this presentation started, this way of giving a tool to connect with the global convergent logic. It started in Argentina with a lady called Alejandra Casado, and she's the source, she's the first person who kind of began to share this information, let's say. And you can find all her videos, which are subtitled in English, on the blog also. Alejandra Casado, Universal Perspective, Unfolding of Time, and there you can see those videos, together with other videos which I've had, and the radio, Point Origin, which you can all find that in the blog. Also, if someone wants to get in contact with me, the contact is Universal Perspective 777 at gmail.com. So, well, thanks a lot. And I hope, well, you enjoyed this, and mainly that this is giving you the possibility of becoming available, if that is within your resonance and in your purpose at the moment, to a global perspective, a universal perspective, and a global purpose. Yeah. So thanks a lot.